So good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to the day two of this three-day IPA certificate course in best practices in pharmacy management. I'm Sami Mukadam. Just like yesterday, I'm a group product manager at Surya Pharmaceuticals. And today, of course, yesterday we had a wonderful day with more than 5,000 logins and a lot of queries and comments in the uh, chat box. So thanks to you for keeping it interactive. And today our focus will be to make it even more interactive with the presentations. So today, before I invite the speakers, allow me to take you through the corporate presentation of Servier Pharmaceuticals before we start with the sessions for today. Um, just we said like yesterday, what is Servier? The question is, so it's very simple. Servier is a pharmaceutical company, an international pharmaceutical company, which is there in more than 100 countries, in fact, 140 countries worldwide. And Serdia simply means the first three letters of Servier and of course India, which makes it Serdia. But across these more than 100 countries that we are present is the same company which is that you will find. Now on this slide, there is a very important line, which is very important for us, which is that Servier is an international pharmaceutical group governed by a non-profit foundation. International, of course, means that it is a multinational with more than 140 countries presence. But what it also means is the second part of the statement, which is that Servier is governed by a non-profit foundation. Very interesting to know this for most of you. Might as well come as a surprise. How come a company can be run by a non-profit foundation? But it is a conscious decision that we have made, and as pharmacists, I think this is something that you'll be very interested to know how this kind of affects our functioning. So, for your information, the first way it affects is the kind of research that we are able to do. So, we do not have any shareholders that we need to answer to. Uh, all our profits are directed in the direction of research which we want to pursue. So even if there's a drug candidate which is not so profitable, but of course we feel that it will benefit a lot of patients, we think that we should go ahead with the research rather than listen to the shareholders which we don't have. Um, at the same time, what it also affects is that we do not have the share market funds to uh, uh, dive into. We have a limited amount of funds, which also makes us very conscious into what we put our research funds into. That is why you will find that Servier or Serdi has a very limited number of brands, which are all our own research molecules. All the molecules are discovered by Serdia and Servier, which are available for the patients today. The second part of the reason why Servier remains a non-profit foundation is because of our founder, Dr. Jack Servier, after whom the company is named. He had a very clear belief that the profits from a pharmaceutical company cannot and should not go to a one person or his family. So even though, despite that, he has three children, he made the decision that these profits or the company funds will not be inherited by his family, but it will be governed by a non-profit foundation. So what this affects is what we will see on this slide. First of all, that is why we are entirely independent. We don't have to answer to any share market or any stakeholders like shareholders. And it has also till now really helped us generate a lot of goodwill, because of which that you can see on the slide that more than 100 million patients are treated globally with Servier medicines. So Servier happens to be a leader, in fact, in cardiology, second in Europe, and fifth amongst all the pharmaceutical companies across the world. So really a big name when it comes to global pharmaceutical companies. Now, just the third part, which is how this non-profit foundation affects our expenditure. So, what it says is that 25% of our total revenue is invested back into R&D. So, the profits which are generated, 25% is put back into R&D so that we come up with new medicines for pharmacists, for patients, and for their benefit. If you take an industry standard, it is much lesser. It's around 6% of the profits, and even the best pharmaceutical company in the world spends close to just less than 10%, 9 to 10% in research. But at Servier, you'll find it is close to 25%. This slide, one of my last slides before I close for the day, is that what Serdia believes in, very relevant points from today's point of view, that since a long time, Servier has been a believer in Make in India. So we have a production facility in Aurangabad, and that is why, except Coralan, of which the tablet and the molecule come from Paris, our production factory. Most of our molecules, most of our medicines, you will find that the active molecule comes from Paris, but the tablet production happens in India. Second point is interesting because if you look at it, basically says that we do not have any Chinese API. All our API or active pharmaceutical ingredient is sourced from Paris. What this means is that we do know that there is a certain belief that if there is an Indian pharmaceutical company, it must be producing locally, but it is not so. Most of the Indian pharmaceutical companies, close to 70% of the active ingredient actually comes from China. Only it's the tableting which happens in India. But with Servier, you will find that the active pharmaceutical ingredient is imported from France, from a single factory, which is subjected to a very strict European quality standards. So that is why what we see is that this slide, we don't want to really stress on the products that we are marketing, but just one point that we would like to drive here is that all these brands that you see on the slide, uh, they are present in more than 140 countries. Yet, a, a patient who comes to a pharmacist with, say, Dimicron, the same patient, if he goes to Middle East or Australia or any European country, you will find that even though the prices might be different in each country, the quality remains the same across all the countries where these brands are marketed. So this is the quality guarantee that we offer. So just for the last slide, we would like to thank you again, really big thank you. So the whole point of having this platform is to really kind of address pharmacists and really kind of appreciate the important role that we have been playing in the society today. This lockdown would have been impossible to survive without the contribution that pharmacists are making on a daily basis. Not just medicines, but also essential supplies which that you are helping us on a daily basis with. So thank you really once again from on behalf of Servier and Indian Pharmaceutical Association to all the pharmacists who are serving the Indians across the country. So on this point, we will like to start these sessions for today. Two very interesting sessions, and we really do expect a lot of comments and queries to be addressed today to the two speakers. First off, we have Mr. Shiban Pangari. He is a owner of Medica Pharma in Mumbai and happens to be an alumni of Institute of Chemical Technology in Mumbai, and has been in the industry or the pharmaceutical business for more than 10 years. He has a very interesting topic: improving business outcomes in pharmacies. What we have tried to do, as Shiban will also point out, is that we have close to 300 comments or questions in the chat box yesterday. So we have already kind of filtered those questions, and Shiban has already those questions in the slide, which we will be addressing today. And second is something which is close to every pharmacist's heart, which is the D&C Act. And who better than Mr. Nilesh Gandhi, who has been a former Assistant Commissioner of Maharashtra FDA, to explain us and take us through the most important points of the D&C Act, which we need to remember. After Mr. Shiban, Mr. Nilesh Gandhi will take over. And Mr. Gandhi, as I said, has been an Assistant Commissioner of FDA with more than 26 years of experience in FDA with important positions such as WHO GMP inspection panels. So at this stage, I will just hand over to Shiban and let's all start the proceedings for the day. And thank you once again for joining. Over to you, Shiban. Just need to unmute you.
Okay.
And can share the screen.
Okay, is my screen visible?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, now it's fine.
Yeah, now it's visible. The PPT is on.
You just need to put it on slideshow.
Yes, sir.
Fine. Fine. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah.
Well, Sami, thanks for the introduction. Well, my name is Shiban Fangari. I am owner of Medica Pharmacy. We basically run 3 medical stores in Kalyan, Ulhasnagar, and Kalyan. I have 2. Okay. And I have a generic medicine distribution business, and also I'm into exports of APIs. Okay. So my topic for today is improving business outcomes in pharmacy. Now, if you look at a topic, improving business outcomes, it basically comes down to 2 things, which is fulfilling the prescription, number 1, and the second thing is how to improve the profitability of a pharmacy. Broadly, in this presentation, we will be looking at both these topics. So let's move on to the first slide. So the first slide is what are the means and sources to improve the business outcomes. See, it's all about from where you purchase things and from where are you going to sell it. Purchasing is basically very defined because you have a proper channel of distributors, wholesalers, super stockists, CNFs. And here we will be speaking broadly of 3 topics, which is purchasing and inventory activities, setup and process activities, and sales promotion. Purchasing and inventory activities. This chart basically sums up the whole process into one thing. Basically, suppose you are going to start a pharmacy tomorrow. First thing which you will do is you will look at the locality from where you want to start. Then you will get all your licenses in place. And then after you have got all your drug licenses, then you are eligible to place a purchase order. But for placing a purchase order, you can go to CNFAs. No, you cannot go there because they have a fixed quantity of things which you have to purchase. So what you will do is you will approach the distributor of medicines which are appointed for your area. Now in pharma, you know that every company has a specified distributor for various products. Okay, so there are a lot of distributors. So you need to first go into things like what you want to purchase and how much will you allocate it to. Okay. So this is the chart which sums it up. You have to get a purchasing agent. You have to place your purchase order form. Once you receive it, you have to keep it in your record. And then again, once it gets sold, you have to bring it back. This is just an overview of things which we then normally do in a chemist store. Now, this is very important, the inventory costs, the carrying cost, the ordering cost, and the shortage cost. See, this if you are unable to manage these 3 costs, it becomes very difficult for you to run your pharmacy. And you should have a very brief idea of what will be your budget, what it will be like. See, carrying cost is cost of holding an item in inventory, ordering cost, and shortage cost. Okay, yeah, this is which you can see it in your slides. Ordering cost is cost of replenishing inventory. Shortage cost is temporary or permanent loss of sales when demand cannot be met. Now, I would like to share with you my experience regarding this shortage cost, which I have seen in the times of COVID-19, Corona. Now, you can see that during Corona, the cost of products like vitamin C and all the nutraceuticals these products are in very high demand right now because everyone wants to boost their immunity. Okay. So to get to these products, the first problem is that there is a lot of shortage in the market because now everyone is buying the same product. So even the companies didn't know that this product will be in so much demand. So the whole supply chain has got changed, right? Because now the companies have to buy the API, then they have to produce the tablets, and then they have to ship it to the distributors, and then they have to give it to us. So this is very important. Like you should have a very fair idea of the future. You should do a forecasting, like what will be in demand. Like this, now the monsoon is going to come, so you should have a proper forecast 1 month back that these products can go into shortages. So you should stock them, and because at that time you might get some good schemes, you might get some good rates. Now everything is on the higher side. So this costing things is very important for running a pharmacy. Now various factors to consider, like I have already told, there is a seasonal or cyclical demand. So you can say in Ramadan, we have a very high demand for anti-ulcer drugs because of the lot of oily foods and you can say very spicy foods being eaten by people. Like same in COVID-19, now we are having a very high demand for vitamin C. It's an immunity booster, but no one knew that this will be in such a high demand. So this is what you need to consider first, because before placing an order and what to do. And you have to, the third point is take advantage of price discounts. These discounts are offered by companies a lot of times, but once the product is in demand, they go out. So you need to be very smart enough that you get the products in your shelf before the demand shoots up. Then there we have a bullwhip effect, which is swings in inventory in response to shift in customers demand as one moves further away from supply chain, and higher safety stock inventories are stored to compensate. This is what we usually see. The continuous system fixed order quantity, amount of inventory declines to predetermined level. Now periodic system, we are basically in a pharmacy, while running a pharmacy, we have these two types of systems for placing an order. Periodic system, which is like, you know that you have a 10 strips of Crosins, okay, and this is going to go out in some time. So you know that this 10 strips are going to get sold in 3 days or 3 days or 4 days. So you fix your demand in such a way that after 3 days, the order gets placed automatically. When continuous system or fixed order quantity is like, you have a fixed minimum level of product. Suppose you are stocking 100 strips of Crocin in your shelf. Now, if something like that go out of stock, okay, so you need to do it. Once the quantity goes down to 99, the order is placed for 1 strip. So always you have this product in your shelf. Now the EOQ model, we want to determine the optimal number of units to order so that we minimize the total cost associated with the purchase, delivery, and storage of the products. Now these are some formulas which can be used by people who are going to start a pharmacy and they don't know what kind of turnovers to accept, what kind of inventory they are going to keep. So this is inventory turnover is equal to cost of goods sold upon average inventory, and average inventory is beginning inventory plus ending inventory divided by 2. Now see, these formulas were used before, like when I started my pharmaceutical career, we were not, my shops were not, you can say, digitalized. We used to maintain a physical short book, we used to write the products, and this formula which was used to be used then. But now all my pharmacies are digitalized. We have got barcodes everywhere, so we know by a click of a button that what products are available and what is getting sold much more, and the computer does the work for this. All these formulas are feed into our software. So the software calculates what are the amount of, what are the quantity of medicines which we will require after some time, and this nowadays is not much more relevant, but then it used to be. I used to use it, and suppose someone wants to start a pharmacy and he doesn't have the means to go to make it digitalized, these formulas are very useful. Now some checkpoints to keep a track. Now low turnover indicates duplication of stock. That means you don't know what is there in your store. Suppose you have a product A, it is there in your shelf, you have 10 strips, but again you are placing for orders for it. That is where duplication of stocks happen, and it just leads to you locking your money, nothing else. Then there is large purchase of slow moving items. Now you know that some products are very fast moving, some products are slow moving, like OTCs are fast moving, but then you can say some brands, some you can say life-saving medicines, we do cater to them, but then their movement is not that much for a normal pharmaceutical store. Okay, so if you are purchasing these items on a very huge quantity, then this can lead to a low turnover of you, and then you end up with something called as dead inventory. Now you know that some products are just not getting sold. They are just lying in your shelf, and you don't know what to do with it. Although in our industry we have a very good supply chain management that we can return the products back to distributor, but then again to get your refunds and everything, it takes about 2 to 3 months. So that can lead to you locking your good money in your dead inventory. The high turnover indicates small volume purchasing. Now this is where you have to be very, very smart. That small volume purchasing is good, but then this can lead to you can say prescriptions getting bounced from your counter. The reason being, suppose you are keeping 10 strips of product A, and suddenly the demand shoots up, and you are having a demand of 15-16 products. So you might end up with 6 prescriptions getting bounced. So that should not happen. You should be very smart enough that suppose you are procuring a product in small volumes, but it should have You should be smart that if you see the demand is going up, you should order it properly that you don't miss any prescription. Important tip towards expired stock: be attentive towards expired stock, as they can be major source of loss. Stock near expiry should be marked and their location should be tracked. See, the expiry in our business, it's you can say we get refunds from our distributors, but then again you have to go then again into GST stuff, and then you have your inventory getting locked. Basically, that is the big problem with expiry. Dead inventory, and you can say all your money is getting over there. So you should keep these things in mind while running a store. That expiry is a very major topic, and you should always have it in back of your mind that you are going to do. What I do in my shop is I make it a point that every 2 months we take out all the expiries which are there for 3 months at once. Suppose now we are in 6th month. So now what we will do is we will take our expiries, which are products which are going to get expired in the 8th month itself. So that's when the distributor will accept it, and then he will give you a refund. So you should have a forecast. You should have a thinking that these products are going to get expired. Although because of computerization and digitalization, this process also has become very simple right now, very convenient for us. But then still it is required. What are the means and sources to improve business outcomes? Setup and process activities we will be looking at right now. Setup basics. Now this we will go from ground zero. Like suppose you are going to open a shop now, and you have got your place, you have got your licenses, right? And now you have placed the order with your distributor. Okay. So once you receive the stocks, now you have, I will suppose that your racks are ready, your shelves are ready. So where to keep what things? Now this can be done in two major ways. One is the alphabetical arrangement, and other is a company-wise arrangement. Alphabetical means you are placing all the products. Suppose you have 26 drawers. So we have marked them A, B, C, D. You have placing all the products with alphabet, starting with alphabet A in one drawer, starting with alphabet B in another drawer. This is good, but when you are holding your inventory and inventory is quantity is very small, this is a okay thing. What I follow in my pharmacies are I make them company wise. Company wise is you have all the products of Surveyor in one drawer, you have all the products of Cipla in another drawer, and A, B, C, D companies different drawers. This becomes very convenient if you are going for expiry and other stuff, because then you can place. Also, while remembering, this is very easy. Suppose your alphabetical can get tough once your inventory is crossing the limits. Okay, but company wise is a good option. The third option, which is not mentioned here, is you can even arrange them generic medicine wise, like all the contents of paracetamol in one drawer, all the contents of aceclofenac in another drawer. But then this is useful, but then this can get messy. So I will suggest that you stick to these two arrangements. Now these are some softwares which are broadly used in our digital stores. The first one is Marg ERP, C Square. The Samarth is a very good option. I personally use Samarth because I find it very user friendly and very easy to manage. Digital can be a big help. Yes, this can be, because you are seeing that once I am sitting in my store, I get patients. You can say 90% of them first comes and ask why how much discount will you give? Like kitna discount dega? Aisa hai. So what to do to get over this discount? See, I'm not against the discounting things. You can give some amount of discount, but then at a particular time, you will find that if you are only giving discounts, then your profitability is going to dive and you might end up in a very big loss. Now, what happens is after these stocks are expired, DC now in this slide, what we are mentioning is the expired and breakage stocks. This is very easy to get over with the help of these softwares which we have right now. These softwares basically now softwares have become so modernized that we can see the supplier products, we can view their live stocks, and we can place the order sitting at our store. So suppose we have a company Surveyor who has you can say 10 distributors in Kalyan. Okay, so now you can say suppose I want a product called diamicron. It is not available with supplier A, but it might be available with supplier B. So how do I know? I have to call him Well, that can become sometimes troublesome because you can see the supply chain also currently is going through a very difficult time because of manpower shortage. So what we do is we check the stock live because of the softwares, and then we place the order and the goods reach us state. So you can say we are reducing the human interference in the whole supply chain, and then we can compare the rates and schemes offered by various distributors. We can view product information as well. The softwares have all the generic codes mentioned, also what they are used for. So it is like a dictionary. You can refer it anytime. Now you get the whole thing. Yeah, like the whole patient information is available. Where does the person stay? What is his mobile number? Which doctor, which is his family doctor, you can say, and then for how many days you have placed the order for. All these things are becoming very, very, very easy because of the softwares. Now this is where the important thing is, like it is, we have a thing, it's Anifruit 40 tablet. Okay, now we have placed a minimum quantity of for it is 10. So once the stock goes down below 10, suppose I have a stock of 10 and I've sold one strip to a patient, the computer will automatically generate an order for one stock, one quantity to be ordered. So always I will have a stock of 10 strips in my shelf. So never a person, you can say, I don't ever, you can say, bounce a prescription. And this is what is very, very, very important. So you can see here 9 pieces. You can see it is showing it has crossed a minimum level, so it will place an order for one piece. And then you have this, we can select the supplier, select the company which you will order. Everything is there, everything is automated nowadays, and this is a huge help. And I would suggest everyone who wants to start a pharmacy, please make it modernized, because again, already we are in a big race, and if you are going to start with a physical maintaining store, it will become very difficult, because we have a lot of brands coming in daily, and it is physically, you can say, humanly impossible to remember everything, and that's where we need it. And here you can see the person is very happy. He is having breakage and near expiry alert in the software. So the software, you can say, every month they shows an alert that if A, B, C, D products are going to get expired, and you need to ship them back to your distributor so that you get a proper refund. See, here we have all the reports as well. Like you want to see how much amount of things are you purchasing from a particular distributor of a particular company. So you can analyze, and then you can go to the distributor, and you can then bargain as well. Like you are having such a good sales from him. So you get, see, if you are going to maintain it physically, it is impossible. So the main thing is just go digital. And then the very interesting topic, sales promotion. See, this is what we generally do. It is free medical camps we organize. These are basically for two broad categories of patients: the BP patients and the diabetes patients. See, these camps you can organize yourself. Like you can keep a person outside your store who will invite people, and they will get themselves checked. What this helps is it helps in improving your goodwill with the customers. You can counsel the patients, and you can even use social media as well. Now these free medical camps, you can do it yourself, or else now we are seeing is we are getting a lot of offers from the company. Now suppose your counter is a very fast moving counter, and you have a good business, even the companies approach you with their products. Like we have done a bone density camp in our medical store, because the company wanted to promote their orthopedic product range. So that's how, so it's a win-win situation for both. Even you get good customers, and even the company gets to show their brands to the patient. These camps basically are very important, and you can say you can have about 60% of the, you can improve your sales by 60% if you do it regularly on a regular basis. Once or twice a year is not that good. You should at least have once or twice a month these such camps, so that people get themselves, you can say, in their head that no, such medical stores are having such camps, so they will often visit you. Once the patient count, the foot count in your stores increase, that's what is important. That's when you will get the prescriptions. That's when you can fulfill everything, and that's when you can show them OTC products as well. See, going digital is a very good option. Like what you can do is we can make an app for it, and so that the customers can scan our inventory. This can be used basically for you can say OTC type of stuff. So that now we have a lot of competition coming in from Amazon, from Facebook. So why not go digital ourselves? This can help us in a big way to support our business and grow. And you can see this competition is a way of improving yourself. Like you should not look at Amazon or Facebook as a competitor who are eating your business, but you should improve yourself, that you are going to compete with them, and you should improve your business as well. That's what I have seen. Once you go digitalized, I can say that my business has grown, you can say, threefolds after that, going digital. Now, this is a very interesting thing like Facebook Live, where you can do marketing of your pharmacy. You can select the geographical region, the target area, the target audience. Everything filter is available for us. We have to just use it. It's a very small amount of fees which you require, about 400 500 rupees, and you can use this so that now patients in your, you can say in a radius range of 5 to 10 kilometers can come to know that yeah, such and such store is opening in our locality, and we can go there and take some medicines or OTC products. Like they should come to know that there is one another option after that. See, it all boils down to human touch. That's where I think the online pharmacies will have a tough time in India, because Indians have a preference, like they want to get counseled before they get buying the medicine. Now, even if they come with the prescription from a doctor, they will ask you like, what is it for? Why the doctor is prescribing this to me? Even if the person knows that what is the problem, that's where he needs to get it counseled and help us counsel and build relations. This is what is very, very, very important out here. And this is where what we have seen in Corona, that you can see that those online pharmacies were unable to deliver their products to the patients. So what I have seen in my pharmacy personally is I have got a lot of customers who were previously online. They came to my store. I gave them a proper service. I gave them some discounts as well. But then now they have realized basically that a pharmacist cannot be replaced by a computer. That's it. See, you should have a computer in your store, but then your presence is much more important, and you should be there always and help people. In the Corona times, you can say the times have become so tough. We have a shortage of manpower. We have shortage of everything, but still the customers are coming, and now they are realizing it. And I would say the Corona is basically a very big opportunity for physical pharmacies to catch up with the business loss to the online merchants. And this is what we are experiencing in our day-to-day lives. Although we are keeping everything safe, we are taking all the necessary precautions, and but still this is a very good time, I would suggest, for everyone over there and who has a pharmacy store or is planning to open a store. Take advantage of it, get your patients in place, and start your business. Now we will look at some frequently asked questions which is generally asked, and we have filtered it for you. How do I balance my inventory on a budget? Prescription brands, OTC, and non-medical. Now, see, the main thing is, for me, a pharmacist, it should have all the prescription brands available, which sometimes is not possible because it all depends on the number of doctors surrounding you and the type of patients who go to them. Now, suppose you are getting a prescription, you are in Kalyan, you are getting a prescription from Mumbai, but you should know that a particular doctor has a lot of people coming in. Okay, so now you should for me it is like prescription brands are much more important. It should be there in your shelf. OTC comes secondary. You might have them, you might not have them, but we should realize that your store is a chemist store. It is not a kirana store. Some chemists are running it like a kirana store, which is not good. You should have all the prescription brands. So you can say you can allocate 70% of your budget to prescription brands. OTC will go 20 and non-medical will go 10. Suggestion for changing landscape with online pharmacies. See, online pharmacies are, you can say they exist and they are going to be there forever. But I don't think so that it will affect the pharmaceutical business as it has affected the normal kirana business and the normal other stores, because you can say that pharmacy and you cannot replace a pharmacist, like the same way you cannot replace a doctor. And you can say the most important thing is a human touch, which should always be there. So see, discount is a big problem. But then what you can counter them with is the free medical camps. You can do targeted advertisements and everything. You can go ahead with that. What about generic pharmacy stores? Now this is a very new topic. It has gained some lot of traction because of our PM sir, who has given it a boost. Generic medical stores, you can say, are not a big problem as such for the normal medical stores, because their patients which they are catering, they basically come from people who are you can say looking to save money. Now a person with a good income will always prefer the brand written by his doctor. Okay, but this is a very good option for people who are tight on budget and who have to save money. So this is a good option. But I don't think so. See, from my personal experience, I don't think many patients of mine personally shifting to the generic medical stores. So this is just an option which is rare for a country like India. Very good, because low cost medicine should be available to everyone, and they should not be left out. When is the right time to scale up a business or open a new store? See, first thing is open a new store. The right time would be, according to me, is personally I have inherited it from my father, but then I've opened 2 new stores after gaining an experience of about 5 years. Okay, so suppose you are fresh from college, and if you want to get into retail pharmacies, first select the locality where you want to get into. Then try to get into a medical store which is already there and doing good business, so that you understand what is getting ordered, what is getting sold, and what kind of customers are there, whether their preferences for OTC, whether their preferences for nutraceuticals, and or they are just coming with the doctor's prescription. You should have a very fair idea about all these things, so that this will help you in maintaining your inventory and the budget. And so right time is after, you can say, 5 years at least from once you are done with the pharmacy. And the scale up, you can do it right now. If you are not yet digitalized, you should go for digitalization. It helps a lot. From my personal experience, it is very good, and future is digital. That's it. Are 24 hours pharmacy shops profitable? How do I decide? See, if you are opening a store, what I would suggest is you won't be having that much bigger budget to go for 3 pharmacists at a stretch. So what I would suggest is, if you are opening it for 8 to 12 hours, that's good. But once you see a demand, you see, it all depends on the locality where you are opening your store. So if you are having a good movement of people even in the night, so that can be useful. But then what I see is, in 24-hour pharmacies, the people who go usually there is to buy OTC products, which again are not that profitable. So according to me, not that good. But still, if you have a very good turnover of patients in the night, suppose you have a 24 hours hospital running behind it, so that can be useful. That might help you. Okay, thank you.
Uh, Thank you, Shivan, for the very informative session. Lots of queries in the chat box, but I think both of you two have already addressed quite a few questions in your presentation. Now we move on to the next session,
Yeah, you're the stopper.
which is on the DNC Act, something, I think, one act which is very close to all the pharmacists and really important from our day-to-day working. And who better than Mr. Nilesh Gandhi, as we have already introduced. He has been an like formerly he has been an assistant commissioner of FDA, Maharashtra FDA. So I request Mr. Gandhi to take over this session and present his slides on DNC Act. So you just need to unmute yourself, so we can see your slides.
Yeah, yes. So my slides are visible.
So you can put on slideshow. That should be fine.
Yeah. Yes.
Great. Yeah.
So good afternoon, everybody. And firstly, I would like to congratulate all of them to finding the time and finding the time to serve the people in this pandemic and unprecedented situation. So really, this is a brave thing to be out and serve everybody. Day to day, your following this, I know I'll not touch upon the intricacies of whatever the provisions are there. I'll just touch upon the key areas so that you will be able to know where you have to be more careful. And I would like to first say that what are the challenges? Why we need to be updated? This we have to first understand. Then we'll be more serious about being updated on the laws or legislative changes, how the law is being evolved. So firstly, I would like to tell you that why this is necessary, because now things have changed. Now we have a proactive and informed consumer who will ask many questions, and we should be ready to answer them. We have a judicial proactivism, and judicial proactivism means there are many PILs, public interest litigations, which are being filed, and courts are giving different directions so that these directions are put into laws, or sometimes they are necessary to be followed by everybody. This is the second thing. Third is what ever increasing competition. So right now you have heard Shiban, so he has told you the competition is increasing. We have competition from the online pharmacy also. So ever increasing competition is compelling us to be updated, to find new ways. And while finding new ways, we should take care that we are not contravening any laws. Okay, what are the categories what we are dealing with in day-to-day life as a pharmacist? These are major main things which we are keeping in shelves of our pharmacy: allopathic drugs, homeopathic drugs, Ayurvedic drugs, cosmetic, food items, and nutraceuticals. So these are the key items which we have to take into consideration as far as law is concerned. And what support we have, or what laws we are expected to be following. Mainly, everybody is aware of Drugs and Cosmetic Act 1940 and Rules 1945. There is second Drugs Price Control Order, which deals with the pricing. And thirdly is Drugs and Magic Remedies. Drugs and Magic Remedies is basically to take care that nobody self-medicates. So label, contents of label or advertisements of drugs should not be such that they lead to self-medication, because drugs are basically chemicals, and almost all the drugs are having side effects, contraindications. So it has to be done or used consciously through a professional, medical professional, and has to be handled by a pharmacy professional also. So general public should not consume the medicines by self-medication. That's why this DMR, Drugs and Magic Remedies, is there. Lastly is what? NDPS, Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act. We come across this act only for the medications or medicines which are also covered under this act. So this can be abused, or there are some ingredients which are also considered as narcotic or psychotropic, but this has medicinal value or medicinal, they are used as medicines. What is the main we are following is Drugs and Cosmetic Act. And what is the objective of the Drug and Cosmetic Act is to regulate import, manufacture, sale and distribution of drugs and cosmetics. Earlier, in 1940, there was only a drug act. Initially, cosmetics was not covered. Then cosmetic was added. Then even Ayurvedic was not firstly added. It was subsequently added. As and when the requirement or things arrive, situation arrives that such thing or such article, substance is to be regulated, or there are some issues, then the legislation comes in or law is enacted, and then it has to be enforced. So this is for what? Regulate import, manufacture, sale and distribution of drugs or cosmetics and cosmetics for total quality management. So this is related to quality and how right quality medicines are made available at affordable price, that take care by DPCO, and how the quality is maintained up to its shelf life. What are the different classes or schedules of drugs which we deal with? Schedule X drugs, they are more potent, more prone for misuse. It has some tranquilizers, etc., included in Schedule X drugs, barbiturates, etc. Schedule H1 drugs, these are some drugs which are to be taken with care, and they are there are some antibiotics included, anti-TB drugs, and they are to be used with care so that the drug resistance is not done, or it will otherwise, then we will have to go for a higher antibiotic, and even if that is the person is resistant to even higher antibiotics, then doctor is not left with any choice for using antibiotics. So such type of Schedule H1 drugs, this has recently in 2014 it was introduced. Schedule H drugs are all prescription drugs. Schedule G drugs are also prescription drugs, but these are drugs which are to be uh, taken under the supervision of registered medical practitioners. Schedule C and C1 are different. The Drugs and Cosmetic Act or licenses we have, they are generally in form. For retail it is Form 20 and Form 21. For wholesale it is Form 20B and Form 21B. So what is this? 20 and 20B is for other than C and C1, and 21B and 20B is Schedule C and C1. C and C1 are generally which requires more care while handling. Storage conditions are to be maintained properly with care, or injectables, vitamin preparations, they are under Schedule C and C1 drugs. And what I said, other than C1. What are the key issues of licenses? They are what? Separate license for separate premises. Why I'm only highlighting the key issues? Because this we have to keep in mind. Sometimes there are different perceptions or hearsay, we go by some logics, and then we land into trouble. So we should keep in mind that separate license for separate premises. So if a separate premises may be in the adjacent or one one gala or one shop, after there is a shop, and if you want to expand and you go to that without getting a license, you shift over or you expand, then it is illegal unless you obtain a license to that separate premises. Okay, then the fresh license is required if there is change in constitution. What are the change in constitutions? The change in proprietorship, it is not change in constitution, because change in proprietorship is a change in ownership, so it is completely new license. But if you enter into a partnership, or a partnership is dissolved and one partner continues as a proprietor, or there is change in limited company to private limited or vice versa, then this is called change in constitution. So there, in that case, you have to obtain new license. Only thing is, the earlier license which is granted, that remains valid for 3 months till you obtain new license. After 3 months, if you don't apply for, if you don't obtain license within 3 months, then it will be considered as activity or sale stock without license. So you need to obtain fresh license in this case, and your license can be suspended or cancelled in case you contravene any conditions of license. What are the restrictions on the dealers? That you cannot sell or stock misbranded, adulterated, spurious, or substandard drug or cosmetic. Cannot stock or sell without license. So obviously what I've said, that if you don't have license, you will be liable for punishment. If you have license and if you stock misbranded, adulterated, spurious drug, then you will be liable for punishment, or you will be liable for suspension or cancellation of license. And you cannot stock or sell drugs in contravention of conditions of license. Conditions of license are which you need to follow, and for example, which is primarily given into Rule 65, how you should deal with sale of drugs. And if you have to follow, if you cannot follow, if you don't follow, then you will be liable for action. So in roughly, I'll come to the requirements of Schedule H, H1 and X drugs. These are prescription drugs and have to be sold compulsory with prescription of a registered medical practitioner. Prescription should not be dispensed more than once. So whenever you honor this prescription, you have to stamp that prescription with supplied stamp, date of this whenever you sell it, and signature of the pharmacist. You have to write the name, address of the seller, date on which prescription is dispensed on that prescription, so that it will not be used more than once. This is what is the requirement of the law. The sale must be done under the supervision of registered pharmacist only. Okay. Next is, sale has to be effected against cash memo. So you have to issue a bill or invoice or cash memo, which has to be duly signed by a registered pharmacist. Sale bills should have the details as prescribed. Generally, everybody knows what are the essential details: the name of the pharmacy, license number, address, name of the doctor, address of the doctor, then name of the patient, address, their the details of the drugs, name of the drug, quantity, its MRP, etc. So these are the essentials which have to be noted on the cash memo. Separate register has to be maintained for Schedule H1 drug. So from 2014, Schedule H1 was introduced, and here you have to maintain a separate register. Now the rules are silent whether the register can be maintained in soft copy. So every officer would insist on the hard copy. So generally, people are expected to write the details, what is prescribed in the register, that name of the drug, when the date of the sale, cash memo, date, number, details of the drugs sold. So this register, alternatively, those who are using this software, this register is generated online. So in that case, daily you can take a printout, you can sign that page for that date at the end of the day, and you can file it in a file and maintain it for inspection or to show the inspecting authority. Records of the Schedule H1 means register and all other records related to Schedule H1 drug are to be preserved for 3 years. Rest of the details, rest of the cash memo, etc., or other records can be preserved for 2 years. But this specific provision of maintaining the Schedule H1 register and details of sale of Schedule H1 drugs are to be preserved for 3 years. This is for all the drugs that substitution is not allowed the registered medical practitioner, if he prescribe one brand, the pharmacist cannot substitute that unless the registered pharmacist has consented or he has written on the prescription. Generally, nowadays, the prescribers or registered medical practitioners write that the above brand can be substituted with generic or alternate medicine or formulation having same ingredients or components constituted. The retailer or wholesaler can sell the drugs to registered medical practitioners, hospitals, dispensaries, or nursing homes, but that has to be only on written and signed order from them. Okay, so if you are supplying drugs to doctors, you have to maintain the written order signed by the doctor, and then only you can supply against that order. All the orders, written orders, has to be preserved for 2 years. What are the additional requirements? For Schedule X drugs only, the prescription shall be in duplicate. One copy has to be preserved by the licensee for 2 years. Other copy would be obviously with the patient. The Schedule X drugs are to be stored under lock and key in a cupboard or a drawer, which has to be placed separated from the general drugs or from the other items, which may be a Schedule H, H1 or stationary items or whatever. So Schedule X drugs are to be stored separately under lock and key. I'll come with some myths and realities related to codeine formulation, because many of the questions have come, and usually I face that codeine preparations, there are different kind of rules and you hear a lot of things about it, the mid-slingers or the codeine based formulations, Pencidil, etc. So what is myth is codeine based formulations with other ingredients are considered narcotic drugs. So they are covered under NDPS, and you have to follow you have to have the license under Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act. But what is reality? Reality is that the codeine based formulations, which contains one of the ingredient codeine, which is mixed with another one or more other ingredient. Single ingredient codeine, yes, it is NDPS or it is narcotic drug. But if it is mixed with one or more other ingredients and it has some minimum percentage of drug, I'll come to it afterwards, then, and generally all this with CPM and other ingredients, these are exempted, or by notification 826 dated 14/11/1985, that is exempted, that is not considered as codeine as a narcotic drug. Such formulations are not considered as narcotics. Okay, so codeine based preparations is myth what? That it is Schedule X drugs, so you need to have prescription in duplicate. So what is this? It is not a Schedule X drug, but it is a Schedule H1 drug. Okay. So next bit is what? Preparation has to be kept under lock and key. It is not Schedule X drugs, obviously. It is not required to be maintained in the lock and key. So there is a Drug Controller General, DCG has issued a clarification about all these myths, and it says it is not a narcotic drug. It is basically, I am just revising it. It is not covered under NDPS. It is Schedule H1 drug, and Pencidil or such type of codeine preparations do not fall into manufactured drug. What is the concept, or it is a term which is used in NDPS. Manufactured drug means a narcotic drug. What is the criteria? Concentration of codeine is not more than 0.2%. and permissible limit is for in liquids is 2.5% in liquid preparation. So it has to be, it is a prescription drug. It is not a narcotic drug, but it has to be promoted ethically. Okay. So what is the compliance required by everybody generally? Ensure supervision of registered pharmacists during sale of drugs. Ensure that drug is maintained at proper storage condition. Do not store physician sample. You are not allowed to stock physician samples or ESIS drug supply or government supply drugs. You need to have a permission for that from the manufacturer as well as licensing authority. Check regularly expired drugs, and you are not supposed to stock expired drugs also. You have to return it to the wholesaler. Veterinary drugs are to be stored separately from the drugs which are for consumption of human beings. Oxytocin formulations are permitted. There is no ban, but for veterinary use, they have to only supplied to hospitals. They cannot be sold across the counter, not also on the prescription of a veterinarian, but it has to be sold directly to the hospitals, veterinary hospitals. This is recent, right now in COVID situation. This is a recent amendment which has come, and it allows doorstep delivery of the drugs, but it is subject to condition that you cannot doorstep delivery the Schedule H, X and NDPS drugs. Okay, H1, X and NDPS drugs. Receipts of prescription means you can sell or you can deliver doorstep Schedule H drugs, but you have to receive the prescription physically or through email. Scan prescriptions, here there is no provision for that. You have to get the transcription or prescription transmitted through email. You have to register your email ID. Licensee should register their email ID with licensing authority, and the supply doorstep delivery should be within the revenue district, means which should be within the district only. You cannot deliver the drugs outside the limit of district. Okay. Prescriptions are to be honored within 30 days in case of chronic disease, and within 7 days in case of acute cases. Okay. Bill cash memo has to be sent by written mail, email only. Physically also it can be delivered. Records are to be maintained, obviously. What are the defenses? There are different kind of restrictions given, but you will feel that if there is a bona fide activity done by you, and there are things which are beyond your control, then what are the defense available in the Act itself? So Section 19(3) gives you the defense which is admissible whenever there is case against you. So what it says, that dealer should prove, what she should prove, that he has acquired the drug whenever there is a drug in question. For example, not of standard drug. If a sample has been drawn from your premises and it has been declared to be not of standard drug. So what is the restriction, prohibition? You cannot stock or sell a not of standard drug. But now it has happened that a sample drawn from your premises has been declared not of standard. So you have committed an offense. But what is defense? That here you have acquired that drug from the licensed manufacturer or a dealer, and you did not know, by due diligence, you did not know that this drug is contravening. For example, if it is a spurious drug and from label itself it is visible that this is not a genuine, and you have stored that. So you should know, since you are there into business, and by doing due diligence, you should be knowing that this is a genuine or otherwise. But if it contains some another ingredients and it is disclosed only after its analysis, then you are not bound to know that unless you have been informed about it. So you can prove that I have done all this due diligence, I have stored the drugs properly, and drug has remained in the same state as it was acquired, then you're not liable for any action. Okay, there are different rights also given to you under this act. Generally, people are not aware of that. Whenever there is sample drawn from you, you are entitled to receive the fair price of that sample. Okay, fair price I'm saying, not MRP necessarily, but fair price has to be given by the person who is drawing that sample. You should receive one counterpart of the sample. Generally, sample is drawn in 4 parts. 1 remains with you. 3 person the inspector takes with him. 2 he retains. 1 he sends it to the government analyst. From 1 he has to send from 2 parts which he retains. 1 goes to the person from whom that retailer or wholesaler has acquired that sample, or a manufacturer, and last portion he has to submit it to the court. Whenever the sample is drawn from, for example, it is drawn from me, I am entitled to receive the report of that sample also. You can get the opportunity for submitting your written explanation whenever there is a show cause notice issued to you, and there is the contemplated action of suspension or cancellation, and you are entitled to submit a written explanation. After that, you can get the opportunity for a personal hearing before the licensing authority, before your licenses are suspended or cancelled. And after the cancellation or suspension of license, you have opportunity to appeal on the order of the licensing authority. You have also responsibilities, what you must sell under drugs price control order. You have to sell the medicine with MRP or lesser than that, but not exceeding the MRP. It is not allowed under DPCO. MRP is which is indicated on the label, and it should be in line with the notified price by NPPA, National Pharmaceutical Pricing Authority. So it should not exceed that. Sometimes the prices are reduced by NPPA, and if you have that stock, it is compulsion on you that you should sell with that revised price, in spite that product has a higher MRP. Whatever is the notified price is there, you have to sell it whichever at the cost whichever is less, and you cannot refuse the sale of drug. Of course, if you have that stock of that drug, you cannot refuse. Okay, this is under drugs and magic remedies, what I have said, that you should not take part into advertisements which are prohibited in nature or advertisements which are misleading. It is a subject in itself. I'll not go into details. So here in NDPS, whenever you deal with the products which are covered under NDPS, then you have to follow even the exempted. For example, psychotropic sale of psychotropic drugs, you don't have to have a separate license under NDPS. But there is a responsibility on you that you should follow all the rules of drugs under drugs and cosmetic rules. If you contravene that, then it will be considered as contravention under NDPS also. So the implications under the NDPS, contravention of NDPS, are more high. They are strict, and there is greater punishment provided. Ensure that each sale is done against proper bill, and for prescription drug, it has to be done against prescription only. Verify. This is due diligence, what I am saying, that you verify while selling large quantity of drugs, especially wholesale licensees, if there is large quantity which is being ordered, just verify it, because it may be a case of abuse. Okay. Under NDPS, there is classification: narcotic drugs, psychotropic substance, controlled substance, and other drugs, means which are not covered into it. The essential narcotic drugs, I'll not deal with this detail, because it needs lot of explanation, because it is the gap is very thin, and those who hold the license under NDPS would know this better. Okay. What is the conclusion? You have to function within the framework of the Act. You have tremendous responsibilities, and it is a profession, not a business. You should consider this as a profession, because all the professionals, for example, medical professionals, advocates, chartered accountants, these are called professionals. They have some responsibility towards society. That's why there is a registration, there is a council, there is code of ethics, and we pharmacists also are part of that profession. So this, we should consider this as a first professional, and then we should go into the business aspects. Law provides safeguard also. This we have to consider, and do not confine to a limited role, because now need of the day is that you should go beyond that, and you should try to give more information to the consumers or patients. Adapt, prepare yourself to meet these challenges, and these challenges will be increasing day by day, and it is always a dynamic, and this also always there is a change. So thanks a lot, and I hope within short period of time I have covered all these things, and I hope you have understood this. Hello.
Hello. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah.
Sami here. So thank you, sir, for helping us, and I think a very clear presentation will only come to years and years of experience in this.
Thank you.
For example, we have Jia, Deepak, me, three people asking more or less the same question. Very common nowadays. What big push a lot of generic pharmacies of poor application, and you offer them a generic substitute. Is the basically they need to understand how do we balance the push for generic from the government and the existing rules of the BNC Act.
Yeah. Am I supposed to answer this?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. So as far as drugs and cosmetic rule is concerned, the rule is clear, 6511A, where you cannot substitute any drug, but now medical code of ethics is in place, and medical practitioners are expected to write the prescription in generic name, and in addition to that, if they are not aware of any generic name, or there are if he feels that it can be substituted with some other branded product also of maybe similar the quality, as well as maybe with lesser price, he can add that his brand or prescription can be substituted. Then you're authorized to. Otherwise, as far as drugs and cosmetic rule is concerned, it is not allowed.
So another question about soft copies of prescriptions. What is the ruling on that? Because very routinely now with the digital system of placing order of medicines, how are soft copies of prescriptions covered for physical pharmacies?
Yeah. Now the drugs and cosmetic rule is silent on the soft copies or softwares, etc. As far as sale of drugs is concerned, recently they have come out with this doorstep delivery of medicines, and they have specifically mentioned that email, because all the communication through email is encrypted and it is authentic, that you cannot play with it. Or the scanned images, yes, you can play with it. you can tamper that. So authenticity of transmission of the prescription is an issue. So right now, as far as the rules are concerned, the transmission of prescription through email are allowed. But additionally, there is a provision under IT Act that wherever the documents which need to digitally signed and the document which are generated through electronics can be acceptable. But there you need to ensure that the original in sense, the digital signature is in place, and that copy without tampering, it is transmitted to the pharmacist.
Thank you once again for like patiently
Yeah.
answering all the questions. I'll take just one last question because this is again
Yeah.
very frequently being asked. Like how many years second copy of sales and purchase bills need to be maintained, especially in the digital age? I think you touched upon this topic, but it's a new information for a lot of the attendees. So if you can again repeat what you said, so it is for the sake of
Yeah,
clarity.
see, under drugs and cosmetic rule, it is mandatory to maintain for 2 years. So irrespective of your quantum of business, the second copy, that too legible copy, has to be maintained for 2 years. Other acts are there, for example, Income Tax Act and all that. There, I suppose, I feel that there is provision that they have to maintain all the records for 7 years. But drugs and cosmetic rules provide only for maintenance of 2 years.
This is just one last question, because this is
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
If the doctor himself or herself writes the molecule name, then what is the freedom that a pharmacist has to prescribe the brand molecule?
Yeah, he can dispense any medicine. It is up to him because there is no such restriction as of now. So some may dispense the products which higher margin, or some may dispense with the as per the interest of the customer or patient, which has a lower value or which is a bit less costly or something of that sort. So right now there are no provisions to deal with this.
We'll wrap it up for today here. Thank you, Dr. Gandhi, for this excellent presentation. I think it's years of experience distilled into these last 45 minutes. And we cannot basically answer all these queries. What we can do, in fact, is pass over all the comments that we have compiled. I think more than 50 that we have
Right.
crossed, and give it to Mr. Gandhi
Right.
along with the contact details of the attendees, so that we can see if,
Right.
whatever possible, how much ever possible, we will try to reply individually.
Definitely can be
Sure.
done. Definitely. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you once again from Indian Pharmaceutical Association and Servier Pharmaceuticals. And on their behalf, I thank you once again to all of you for joining us on YouTube. One more day to go, but I'm sure that we will end with a big bang tomorrow. We have two of these speakers who are considered to be the best, one of the best speakers on for patient counseling, community pharmacy. Miss Manjari, who we had yesterday, she will be taking a very interesting topic tomorrow about preparing for monsoons and what, as pharmacists, we can do to tackle the diseases that are going to come in monsoon. Second topic, of course, also is on patient counseling. We have Dr. Sadhna Sathe with us tomorrow on patient counseling. And we saw in Shiban's presentation how patient counseling is the key to make good relationships with your consumers. So very interesting topics, and of course we end with a big bang tomorrow. We already have Mr. Rajiv Singhal sharing comment that he has liked the presentation. And after the sessions tomorrow at 4 p.m., we will be having closing remarks through two big personalities, Mr. Shindeji and Mr. Rajiv Singhal who will be addressing on behalf of AIOCD about the role of pharmacists in the post-COVID-19 era. So please do join us tomorrow for the last day of the certificate course, which of course is also important uh, to receive certificates. So we need your attendance for all 3 days. So please join us tomorrow, and thank you once again on behalf of Serdia Pharmaceuticals and IPA. Have a good day to all of you. See you tomorrow.